Today's headline is The Lone Highwayman. He held up 13 stages in 60 days. The subheadline says, and nothing ruffled him. Smiling Williams, he came to be known in the Frisco jail. He was undoubtedly a man of courage, sense, and character, all wasted. This article originally came from the San Francisco Examiner. It says, during his lifetime and when he figured in the United States courts, little Frank Williams was known as the Lone Highwayman. In less than 60 days, he was suspected of having stopped and robbed 13 stages, making a trip from Oregon clear down to San Francisco and taking in everything that came along in either direction. On December 23, 1889, when Smiling Williams was arrested, he stood 5 feet 4.5 inches high, weighed 130 pounds, was 25 years old, and wore a number 6 shoe. The photograph taken at that time shows him to have a heavy shock of chestnut hair, a large, powerful nose, wide cheekbones, prominent temples, full ears, and a smiling mouth. He was always laughing, the officers say. He couldn't keep his lips together, and his smile was always pleasant. He first came into public prominence, though his identity was not then known, by the ingenious way in which he stopped the stage on the Forest Hill route. He stuck up a stick on the side of the road, put a coat and hat on it, put a gun between the coat sleeves, and using that to frighten the driver and the shotgun messenger, went through the stage. There were 6 passengers too, and among them were undoubtedly men of courage, but when Williams, in a smiling, easy way, came along and asked them for their valuables and pointed significantly to the dummy across the road, they gave him all he asked for. After he had gone, and the shotgun messenger found out that Williams' associate was a bundle of old clothes, he felt like resigning in sheer disgust. Williams' specialty in stage robbing was his strict attention to business. After he robbed one stage, he got on it as a passenger, drove along for a considerable distance, dismounted, told the driver to tell the driver of the downstage that he was waiting for him, and kept his word. When the next stage came along, Williams stepped out, and although everyone was expecting him, no defense was made. He went through that stage, and the very next day stopped another stage on the same route in about the same place. That was a trifle more than the officers could stand. It was adding insult to injury, and they made such a vigorous search for Williams that he put 5 miles between himself and the scene of his last operations before he stopped another stage. He never wore a mask, nor did he make any particular effort at concealment. Evidently, he did not expect arrest, but intended to make a few good hauls and leave the state. His description was telegraphed and mailed all over the country, and his features were pretty well known when he came down to San Francisco to spend a well-earned holiday. The story of his capture created quite a laugh at the time. Smart as he was, he allowed himself to be tricked in a very simple way. Captain Lee saw him and suspected that he was the man wanted for the robberies. He had Bailiff Ryan at the police court make Williams' acquaintance, and in order to keep him around the place while he was making sure of his identity, Ryan suggested to Williams that there was a very spicy trial going on in one of the courtrooms, and suggested that they go in and listen to the evidence. The idea seemed to strike Williams pleasantly, and he took a seat with Ryan in a corner of the room. Presently, Lees came in with the description, walked over to Williams, and arrested him. The prisoner always smiled and said, "Well, you've caught me." Despite the daring he had shown in his robberies, the police thought that they had rather a simple man to deal with, but they soon discovered that Smiling Williams knew a thing or two himself. When he was put upon his trial in the United States court, the indictment taken up was one for robbing the Forest Hill stage. The evidence was complete. The passengers could identify Williams as the man who held up the stage, the driver was certain, the clothing that the robber had worn and the handkerchief that he had used on that one occasion as a mask, and his weapons were all identified. It was shown that he had been at the scene of the robbery. It was shown that the cartridges used in the sawed-off shotgun which he carried had been specifically manufactured for him, the buckshot being chambered in a peculiar way. But Smiling Williams only smiled some more, and when his attorney put in his defense, it included an alibi. The alibi seemed to be first class, and part of it consisted of the register of the Golden Eagle Hotel at Sacramento, which bore Williams' signature on the night of the day that the robbery was supposed to have taken place. Clearly, if Williams had registered at the Golden Eagle Hotel at that time, he could not have been 40 miles away robbing the stage. The statements of the defense included a theory that Williams had met in Portland, Oregon, a man named Miller, who had the clothing similar to that found in Williams' possession. There was a handkerchief which was identified, and Williams explained that that handkerchief belonged to Miller and had gone into his effects by mistake. The wicked miller and the hotel keeper's alibi were the things which the defense relied upon, but the prosecution, although not very strong in the matter of indictments, had sense enough to look into the facts. They found that Williams' signature was genuine enough, and they found that he had really been at the hotel. But they also found that the date on the register was not the date of his arrival. It was the custom to change the date of arrivals on the register when the day clerk came on. After Williams had committed the robbery, he made a cut, jumped a train, drove a considerable distance, and by jumping a freight train, got into Sacramento about 4 o'clock in the morning. He went immediately to the Golden Eagle Hotel and registered. Other people came after him and registered before the date was changed when the day clerk came on. The appearance of these other people was a weak point in Williams' alibi. They testified that they had arrived at the hotel after 4 o'clock in the morning and fixed the time of Williams' coming. This gave the detectives an opportunity to discover the route which Williams had taken from the scene of the robbery to Sacramento, and everything fitted in exactly. The fact that the stage was robbed between Auburn and Forest Hill on the 12th of December, and that on the 12th of December Williams' name appeared upon the hotel register, no longer cut any figure. Witness after witness identified Williams as the man who at various times had robbed stages, and particularly as the man who on the occasion of the 12th of December in Placer County had at the point of the pistol compelled the driver, Frank Carl, to throw out the mail pouch in Wells Fargo's treasure box. So the jury convicted Mr. Williams, and for the first time in his judicial career, Judge Hoffman pronounced a life sentence. It is a remarkable thing that the only other person sentenced in the district court for life since the time of the occupancy of the bench by Judge Hoffman was William Smith, who on February 19, 1886, was sent to Folsom for life by Judge Sawyer. William Smith is the man known as Buckshot Smith, who was with Williams at the time of the escape. It was Buckshot Smith who grasped Guard Breyer by the waist and went over the precipice with him. He was given a life sentence for mail robbery after having served 5 years for robbing the stage. His crime was committed in 1882, and Wells Fargo's people made a special effort to keep him out of the way permanently as he was regarded as a particularly dangerous man. During the trial and subsequently, Wells Fargo's people and the police made great efforts to find out who Smiling Williams really was. They ascertained that he had friends who had provided him with money for his defense. On one occasion, Carol Cook received a check of $300 from a place in Texas as a fee for defending Williams. Subsequently, other sums were sent to him, but he never could discover who it was that sent the money. Williams was in the habit of telling stories about his adventures while in company with a young woman whose picture he frequently displayed. The picture was that of a girl in a riding habit standing beside a large black horse. The singular resemblance between the features in the picture and Williams, and the marked resemblance in size of the two, caused Cook to suspect that the girl was no other than Williams in woman's costume. But Williams always denied this and said it was a picture of his sweetheart. When asked about himself, Williams always became reticent. He appeared to be acquainted with people in Texas, New Mexico, and Missouri, and the police thought that he was a Texan, or perhaps from New Mexico. When he was sent to jail, he wrote a letter to his relatives in New Mexico to tell them that they need not expect any more communications from him, as he was about to go to Africa. He intended to settle in the interior, which was far removed from postal communication, and grow up with the country. He explained to the attorney that he did not wish his folks to find out where he was or anything about it. He went to Folsom with the mystery of his early life still unsolved, and he lies there on the hillside now with a plain board number for a tombstone, unknown, unidentified. All the convicts speak of Smiling Williams as a remarkable man. He was always truthful, always brave, and a good prison comrade. He was known to the officers as a dangerous prisoner, to the convicts as a true friend. He never bore malice, always told the police that he was not angry at them for catching him. They were simply doing their business as he had his. But he never for a moment ceased to think about escaping. This story came from the great state of Pennsylvania, being reported in the Philadelphia Times of July 16, 1893. Thank you for joining us today. If you want to continue to uncover all of America's lost and forgotten history, then remember before you leave to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and remember to like and comment below. And we will see you next time on Americana Archives.